Okay, good afternoon. This is Richard Hsu, host of Hsu Untied. Today I'm really thrilled and pleased to have with me as my guest Kathi Vidal, who's a partner at Winston and also the former head of the USPTO. Kathi, welcome back to the program.
It's so great to be back here. I can't believe how long it's been since the first time we did a podcast.
I know, I know. Well, I've upgraded now to video, so there you have that at least.
Fantastic.
So, Kathi, let me start by asking you, I'm so curious about how the opportunity to become the head of the PTO even comes about. Was that a childhood dream of yours or what?
I don't even know that I could spell USPTO when I was a child, but no, it was not a childhood dream. And, I certainly had no aspirations of going into government. I will
Uh-huh.
say my father was in the Navy, so we
Oh.
definitely had a spirit of serving, and that's something that I grew up with. In terms of how it came my way, I was approached at some point by some colleagues who were just asking generally if I knew who would be good in the role. And then they came back and said, "Is that something you would ever consider?"
Hmm.
And at that point, they weren't in positions of influence. But I still, I thought about it and I thought, I'm not going to even say something in a flip way if I wouldn't follow through on it. So,
Yeah.
chatted with the family. I thought about what's going on in the world today. I thought about the importance of intellectual property to economic growth, to jobs. And I thought, if I were to go in that role, how could I approach the role and really make impact? And
Huh.
when I started thinking about it, that's when it made sense. And I said, yes, if I was approached, I would be happy to take on the role, but I'm not going to lobby for it because I don't want to feel like I owe anybody anything when I get there, that I'm
Yeah.
supporting any one group or any industry, that I really want to make sure that the client technically is my country and I'm doing everything I can for the country. And then long story short, a bunch of time went by. I went about living my life, figuring that was just kind of an off conversation. I think it was about a year and a half later, I got an email from the White House saying, "Can we talk?"
Oh, interesting. Oh, so there was a big lag between you saying, "Oh, I wouldn't mind doing it," and then actually when they called you.
Exactly, because it wasn't the same people, right? These are just,
Oh.
there were a lot of people who were looking for who might be the best next director, and other people were in consideration, and I was not lobbying or part of any of that. I just
Huh.
went about my business.
Huh. So, was there any point along the time, either during that year and a half period, or maybe even after the White House called, that you thought, "Oh, you know what, I'm not going to do this"? Or, I mean,
No,
how much back and
no.
forth did you struggle with this decision?
I didn't struggle at all. I was fine not doing it. It
Uh-huh.
wasn't it wasn't that I aspired to do it when I had
Yeah.
that first
Yeah.
conversation. It was
Yeah.
more, I knew it would be a service. I knew I would have to change a lot in my life. I'd have to give up a life I really loved. I knew that I would have to live in DC and be traveling constantly when my family was in California.
Yeah.
I knew that from, just in order to go into government, you have to give up basically everything that you own. Some of it can be sold. I invested a lot in startups. I had to give that away because I couldn't sell it. And
Mm.
so for me, I knew it would be a big sacrifice. It doesn't
Mm.
feel like one because it was such a rewarding experience, but
Yeah.
I'd already come to terms with that. And so once the White House called, I thought, oh, this is getting real now.
Well, what was your first reaction, your first day on the job? I mean, what were you thinking? Still no regrets, or was it just completely foreign? I mean, you weren't exactly training for this job.
Well, I was. So I was in a way. So first of all, I've never had a regret. So no matter how many times we have that discussion, there's never been one moment, one
Huh.
second that I regretted this.
Uh-huh.
In fact, I loved it the entire time, and I
Wow.
loved having done it. When you think about the first day for me, what happened was once I knew that I was the person, then the firm was really good about letting me have the time I needed to prime the pump so that I could achieve the most for the country when I was in the role.
Mm.
So, yes, I didn't prepare for this job my entire life. Although to some extent, all the advocacy work that I had done over the years really inured to my benefit and to the country's benefit because I was able to advocate for our country, advocate for what I thought was right.
Huh.
But in that time period, which was many, many months between when I knew I was the candidate and when I was confirmed, and then the president had to officially nominate me, and then the Congress had to confirm me. during that time, all I did was sign up for every communication from the USPTO. I read all the comments that stakeholders had given to
Mm,
the PTO on all the hot topic issues. And then at some point, I was allowed to talk to the USPTO team as long as they did not communicate anything that was confidential,
mm.
but they could talk to me about any public information. So I pretty much started the job in a way
Hmm.
long before I actually
Hmm.
took office.
Were you able to speak to any previous PTO heads to kind of get their perspective or anything like that? Is that
I
something you tried to
did.
do?
I did. I actually called a number of them,
Okay.
and I a part of that was to find out more what did you want to do that you didn't accomplish?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
if you had had a couple more years, what would you have done? Like what do you think needs to be done in that role? And
yeah,
then
yeah.
certainly any thoughts that they had, I was completely open to that.
Cool.
And not just heads of the office. There were a lot of amazing people who used to work for the PTO.
Yeah,
So I
totally.
just kind of went through everybody that I could find and asked them. I asked people in the Department of Commerce, like even more broadly. I've spoken to people in a lot of government roles to figure out what's the lay of the land, what's the best way to approach a position like this.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you've already said, obviously, made it very clear you enjoyed the job, but maybe just describe like how it was different from, practicing law or anything else maybe you've done in your life, including being an engineer.
So it's kind of all of the above plus five more jobs. So certainly a lot of advocacy. I was the first director of the USPTO that actually was a sitting judge the entire time as well. So
Hmm.
I was writing decisions on patent issues and basically either affirming or overturning other decisions. So I had to be a judge on top of everything. A lot of the work is international in nature, and
Hmm.
this is a critical time for our country where China, the global South, they look at IP in a completely different way and in a way that would favor those areas of the world above the US and companies that are huge innovators. And
Hmm.
so there's a lot of pressure in international agreements to have forced tech transfer to the global South so
Hmm.
that great innovations that we develop in the country, whether it's COVID vaccines or green technology or other technologies, would be transferred without payment. And so there was a lot of work that I had to do internationally, build alliances with countries so that we
Hmm.
could bolster our allies. So that was a big bucket of work. And then, I was a CEO of a $4.3 billion, 14,000 people company,
Yeah.
essentially, agency. And so that was work in and of itself because a lot of the agency hadn't been scrutinized or looked at or given a fresh look in many, many years.
Hmm.
And so there were agreements I signed with unions that hadn't been signed in decades.
Hmm.
There was a pay raise that I was able to work through for the patent examiners who are so skilled. There's about 9,000 people in that group, so skilled. They have technical degrees, but they hadn't been given a pay raise that adjusted for their technical degrees in 15 years. And
Wow.
so a lot of what I was focused on was the agency itself and making sure that we rethought the agency and we're supporting the workforce. So I could go on and on about all the different jobs that I held, but it was more of a CEO role where you were also the main lawyer, the main negotiator. It was kind of all of it wrapped up into one.
Now, even though you were a partner, obviously, and you've been practicing patent law your entire career, did you still find there was a lot you had to learn, or maybe about internationally that you hadn't really that was you didn't use in your private practice?
I would say there was more on the trademark and copyright side
That
because
makes
I was the advisor to the President of the United States and the administration on everything intellectual property. So that
mm,
wasn't just patents, it was trademarks, it was copyrights, it was trade secrets, it was all of it rolled into one. And then, certainly a good portion of the organization is the patent and trademark office. And so a lot of what I did was get into the weeds on really interesting issues in
mm,
trademarks, and copyright, working on the intersection of copyright and AI. So that I had a
mm.
background in all of it, but I was able to go much deeper in some of those areas that I hadn't gone deeply into before.
Yeah. Now, this hardly sounds like a 40-hour a week job. Was it more work than being a law firm partner, or what would you say about that?
It was much more work than being a law firm partner.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember at some point, sometime maybe 5, 6 months into the job, I ran a marathon and literally ran a marathon. And I thought, that's the most time I've taken off from work. So think about that. I mean, I don't even know what my marathon time is. I don't run them for time. I just run them to actually cross the finish line. But I thought, that's crazy that this is the most time I've taken off work, including weekends,
Wow.
since I was in the position. I was waking up at, 3 in the morning, often, sometimes two. I was working all day long. I had back-to-back meetings all day long, and then I would get all my work done, actually writing decisions or working on policy at night or in the early mornings. And that went on for a very, very long period of time. At the end, it was not that strenuous in terms of rote number of hours. That would have been impossible for the team to keep up. I am so thankful for the team for everything they did to lean in heavily to make sure that we got the momentum to get everything started, like some of the things we just talked about, so many more things, so that we can get it all across the finish line. So
Yeah.
year two, we wanted people to be kind to themselves. We didn't start meetings before 9. We came up with, everybody, there's a half an hour where nobody's going to schedule meetings at lunchtime so that people can breathe. But we were still hitting it really hard. And, Richard, we had unprecedented accomplishments, so many that our public advisory committee couldn't keep track. So now there's a website. If you go to a web browser and type in USPTO strategic plan accomplishments, we started categorizing them according to our strategic plan, everything that we were pushing across the finish line.
Oh, amazing. Now, how did you even have time to train for that marathon?
Well, let me just say, it was the only marathon I ran. I've ran somewhere between 15 and 20 marathons. That was not a smart move. If I regret anything from my entire tenure, it was thinking that even with all that pressure on me and the lack of sleep, that I could go out and run a marathon. I ran it, I crossed the finish line, but it was not the best thing for my body.
Huh. Well, even though it sounds like a lot of work, I know you enjoyed it, but did you feel like you had fun in this job?
I derive fun from serving other people and
Uh-huh.
from winning for and with other people.
Uh-huh.
That is really what gets me up in the morning. I get excited. I get excited when I see opportunities.
Uh-huh.
And I'll just give you a couple examples, and these are not the big ones, but early on, I thought, I wonder if women, because we were looking at the rates of people participating in the innovation ecosystem. And I thought, I wonder if women are opting out of patenting once they're in the system at a higher rate than men.
Hmm.
Because the PTO, what we would do is we would give people a filing receipt, and the next thing they received was a rejection. And so just thinking about the dynamics of how men, women, people of different backgrounds orient to being rejected, I said, let's pull the stats. So our chief economist pulled the stats, and it was true. There was a much higher opt-out rate by women. And so just seeing that opportunity. So I never saw something as a challenge or a negative. I saw, wow, there's a great opportunity here. So then we created letters so that when people got their first communication, it wasn't just a filing receipt. It said, now you're part of the innovation ecosystem. Let me tell you about all the resources at your fingertips. Now you can use patent pending. Like, this is a big, great
Interesting.
day for you. And then even with the rejection, we said, let us put that into context. We want you to get a strong patent. So we're here to work with you. Here's all the initiatives we have, including the
Wow.
Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative. We did a lot of work with HBCUs, with the military. Here's all the support we have to make you a success. So that's one example of things that just got me excited, kept me going. I also learned that we were in libraries across the country, but not in every state and only in one HBCU. So I
Hmm.
got excited about that. Like, wow, we say we want to meet people where they are. Libraries are where people are. They're in the communities. And so I got together with the team and I sent 600 letters with the help of the team to libraries across the country saying, you can help support your country and your community if you're
Wow.
willing to let us train your librarians to help the community.
Hmm.
And we went within a period of months from one HBCU to 7. The USPTO now has over 102 all across the nation. So it was looking at, in addition to all the work of making sure the policies were right, really listening to stakeholders, really shaping things in the right way, every day I saw a different opportunity of, wow, like we could do better. And that was exciting.
Hmm. Now, obviously, it sounds like it's a lifetime of things you could do. It sounds endless. How did you decide, it was time to step down?
Well, the voters somewhat decided that for me. You know, so this is a political appointment. It's a presidential appointment, and each president is going to want to appoint their own person. And so I knew that, and I'm a true believer in making sure that you lift the people who come after you and that you provide them opportunities. And so that was part of what I did. Me
Hmm.
stepping aside gave the deputy director, who's now the first African American male to ever, the first African American to have ever led the United States Patent and Trademark Office in
Hmm.
the over 200 years of its history.
Wow.
So he's now leading. My chief of staff, Shireen Bidal, so his name's Derek Brent, fabulous. He was doing everything with me. He could have led it the whole time. Shireen Bidal, my chief of staff, is now in a C-level position. She's now the deputy director.
Hmm.
And so it really gave people who were doing the great work all along the chance to shine, the chance to get out there, and we got everything across the finish line. There's more to do. We've also completely set a lot of groundwork and for the next wave of great things to come from the USPTO, and they were part of that vision. They helped shape it. Now they get to take it forward for some next period of time.
Hmm. Interesting. Now, you obviously decided to rejoin Winston, your former firm, as a partner. Not surprising, but did you think like, I could do something totally different? Did you entertain, maybe it's time to do something outside law, something else in law? Did you, what are some of the things you thought about doing maybe?
So I did think about that. I thought, I'm a CEO. I could go be a CEO of another company. I love technology. I thought about, could there be a really interesting in-house position, general counsel of some company that has really created interesting issues. I thought about all of that. And to me, it comes down to people and purpose.
Mm.
And I love the people at Winston. I mean, just the calls that I'm having, everybody is filled with joy. They feel like they have a tailwind, not a headwind. They're excited about what they're doing, whether they're in conference services or a fellow partner in antitrust. And I love that, the sense of coming together and supporting each other. And then knowing that the firm has always supported anything I wanted to do to give back.
Mm.
They believe that client service shouldn't just be what you're going to bill for. It's finding deeper connections and things where you can support your clients, your communities. And so it just provided a nice platform for me to say, I want to continue some of the work that I'm doing. I want to continue to work on inclusive innovation, to work on inclusive entrepreneurship, to support the PTO. I formed a CHIPS US PTO chapter as I was leaving,
Mm.
and the firm is completely behind all of that. I really want to lift the next generation of lawyers, including tech lawyers, and help them. I started the Next Gen organization before I went to the PTO, and actually the PTO's own Next Gen system, they created that with me before I
Mm.
was even a blink in the eye of the president. So
Mm.
I love that. I love doing more than just the law, and I love the law as well. That's why my days are never going to be, get off at whatever time and go home and watch TV, and that's the end of it. If I do that, it's only because I've been working since 2 a.m. and I'm fried. And so I knew Winston was a great platform for that, that they would support the purpose, that it aligned with their purpose, and that I would have great people to come back to. It's a family.
Now, maybe you can't even appreciate this yet, but I mean, how is that experience with the patent office going to affect you as a practitioner now representing clients? I mean, it must have completely changed your view on things. Try to describe that for me if you can.
So first of all, I feel like as much as you grow at different stages of your career, I feel
Mm.
like the growth that I've had at the USPTO, having to step up and be a diplomat,
Yeah.
having to work with the White House and across US government and with other countries on really key issues, having to lead other people and realizing what it really means to be a strong leader and how to lift other people. I feel like I'm bringing all of that back, and that's going to benefit not just how I'm going to interact with clients and others, but how I can work together with the team here, how I can
Mm.
continue to learn from them, and how I can bring new experiences to them to share with them on how we lead the firm forward, how we lead for our clients. And so that's really how I'm looking at it. I think my practice is going to be a lot broader.
Hmm.
I'm an AI expert. I've been written up as one of the top AI women in the country, top 50 women in innovation by Forbes. I really want to lean into that and make sure that I'm at the intersection of AI and technology and policy, dealing with standardized technology that's really critical to the country so that we can continue to move the country forward, both with government and now also with the private sector, which now I'm happy to look at it from the private sector point of view and think about how can we rally to support the country more while we're serving our clients at the same time.
Now I realize you've only been back for just days. Has it even been a week yet? I don't know how long you've been
It
back.
has not. It has not. My last day at the USPTO was the 13th. The 14th, I was in the DC office. I officially started on Monday.
Okay.
I worked in the DC office for a few days, and now I'm in the Silicon Valley office. I'm already on cases. People come to me with cases, with expert work. I already advised somebody on a purchase where they were concerned about where certain things might go. So just already fully collaborating with partners on key issues while also thinking, how can we do things that are bigger?
And does it feel like you never left? What does it feel like? Does it feel like just like you would be before you went to the PTO?
You know what? I wouldn't say that. I think I'm better and the firm is better.
Uh,
So the firm has new leadership.
uh-huh.
The last leadership was phenomenal. I loved it here. But there's an infusion of new energy with the new leadership, and that's exciting. The firm is adapting to AI and being very innovative and forward looking about how we serve clients who are evolving, how we provide services, using technology and innovation. So to me, the firm has evolved and I've evolved, and now we're kind of meeting each other at a higher point.
Yeah, super cool. Now, have you ever thought about writing a book about your experiences?
In all my free time, Richard.
Well, based on the job, it sounds like at the PTO, it sounds like you should have a lot of time now, just as a law firm partner.
Probably true. Probably true.
Are you going to run any more marathons though?
You know, I've always been competitive when it comes to sports. I did competitive polo, horse polo, competitive crew, rowing, marathons, and so I'll find something because I think I get my juices flowing, like I said, when I win with with and for other people, and even marathoning, I would get other people, clients, and others to run with me. That's more of a solo sport, but not when you train and get with other people. And then obviously crew and polo, those are all team sports. So I'm going to need that to keep in shape, which I think is really important for anybody. So I'll find something. Not sure if it's going to be marathoning. It might be. It might be, Richard.
Well, Kathi, this has been a fascinating conversation. I really appreciate your taking the time, given your busy schedule. It was a super interesting conversation, and thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much, and thanks for your podcast. Really enjoy it.
This is Richard Hsu and Kathi Vidal. Thanks.